Story number 2. Like many of you, I have been praying. I've been fasting this week, praying that God would redeem, that he would bring good to our community. I've been asking God to protect against greater division and against deeper segregation. I've been praying and asking God to change things, to bring reconciliation and healing. I've been praying for Brianna's family. I've been praying for the safety of protesters. I've been praying for our officers. On Wednesday night, I got word that 2 of our officers had been shot. Thankfully, they're both expected to make a full recovery, but at the time, I got word, I didn't know that, but I got his name, and I knew that he, along with his wife and kids, were part of our church family. His name's Aubrey Gregory, and I immediately got on my knees, and I prayed for him, and I prayed for his wife as she received this news, and again, I was just really thankful that they're both going to be okay. But the next day, I Googled Aubrey Gregory's name just to see what would come up as part of our church family. I just was trying to learn a little bit more about him, and when I Googled him, a story came up, and it was covered by CNN, ESPN, Fox News. In fact, there was a picture with the story of him that had gone viral and had been viewed millions of times. So here's that picture. It was taken at the end of a 6.2-mile race in Louisville that had 7,500 runners. And this brave lady here next to Officer Gregory, her name is Asia Ford. And at the time, she was in last place. But she had demonstrated just remarkable courage and strength to make it that far. She had been on a 2-year journey, had lost over 200 pounds. And she was desperate to finish this race. It was symbolic. She was doing it for herself and for her 3 kids. And she only had a mile left, but she was crying because her body just wouldn't let her take another step. And so she did what a branch does. She prayed and she asked God for strength. And she said, out of nowhere, Officer Gregory showed up. It turns out he had been following the back of the race, and she was the last runner, so he was following behind her, a little bit behind her in his car, and he saw her cry, and he saw her pray, and he got out of his car, and he took her by the arm, and he said, we're going to finish this together. And Officer Gregory said, just before she stepped over the finish line, I cut her loose so that she could finish on her own, and he said, my heart just swelled up. She crossed the finish line and put up her hands and hugged her son and friends, he said, and then came back to hug me. And he said how inspired he was by the way that Asia faced adversity with strength and courage. When asked about why he did it, Gregory explained, being a police officer is not just about law enforcement, it's about helping and serving. And he said, I am a Christ follower, and we're supposed to live our lives for others. I'm a branch. This is what branches do. And being the branch means that we come alongside people who are different than us, and we care and we serve, we love them, we help them cross the finish line. Can we put the picture back up of them? So after church this last hour, I got to find out a little bit more about what happened after this story. This young man's name is Terrence, and Terrence's principal came up to tell me a little bit more about what happened after this. He said, I don't know if you know this, he said, but after this, Officer Gregory continued to spend time with Terrence and spend time with the family as he navigated his upcoming school year. That's what it looks like to be the branch. Story number 3. I want to introduce you to 2 of my friends, 2 members of our church family. First, I want to introduce you to Randy Stennett. Randy was born and raised on a farm not far from here in Glasgow, Kentucky.
Tell me a little bit more about what things were like with your dad in your growing up years.
You know, I never really got to see him much. I would call him and he would say, yeah, I'm gonna come get you. I'll be there to get you Friday, you know. And then we had this big long driveway. It's like a half a mile gravel driveway, something like that, and an old front porch swing, you know. And I sit out there on that front porch swing with my bags packed, just swinging and waiting, watching for the dust cloud to come up, you know, on the road. And probably around midnight or 11 or something, you know, my mom would usually come out and, you know, make me come back in, you know.
Randy was still young, a teenager, when his dad and his older brother introduced him to the world of drugs. Randy managed to earn good grades, and he performed as an athlete. He was a Boy Scout. He was even offered a scholarship at a technical school. But his story shifted when he was caught with methamphetamine at school. In fact, for the next 12 years, he bounced in and out of prison. While in prison, Randy was invited to join a white supremacist gang at the North Point Training Center, a prison near Danville, Kentucky.
Back then, you used to be able to get home packages, which is where people will send you like shoes and blankets from home and things like that. And I had gotten mine, and I was sitting unpacking it, you know, in my cell or right in where my bunk was, and there was 3 black fellas that kind of circled me, you know, and they ended up taking my stuff.
Was there a fight?
Yeah, there was a fight. Yeah, but they won.
Mm-hmm. And that started to send you down a different path.
Yeah, I mean, after that, it's like, sign me up, man.
At 21 years old, Randy was running the prison gang. His reputation was one of being the most powerful and dangerous guys in the yard, but hatred was filling his heart. Do you get any tattoos in prison?
Yeah.
So do you have one that you can show me and talk about? I know it's a really personal question.
Yeah, I mean, I have one right here on my hand. Yeah. I wish I could, you know, I'm going to get rid of them, cover them up or something, but yeah, you know, it's...
But you know, brother.
Yeah.
Somebody else has scarred hands that took care of that already.
Yeah.
You know?
And how, I mean, you know, where my mindset was at that point in time in my life, when I got that tattoo right there, you know, I put that on there with the mindset of slapping people with it. I hated myself, man. You know, I couldn't look in the mirror. You know, I would go out on the yard and I had power and respect and people feared and hated and you know, but when I'd go back in my cell, man, I couldn't look in the mirror, you know. And it was Thanksgiving right around my birthday. I was on the phone with my daughter. And she's trying to be tough, you know. She's asking tough questions. She asked me because her cousin's been giving her a hard time, telling her that, you know, I would never get out of prison again. And so she's asking me some of those questions. And I could hear it in her voice. She's trying not to cry. And and I told her, I said, you know, it's okay to cry. You know, if you feel like crying, you ain't gotta be tough. You cry. And that's what she did. You know, she sobbed. Till the phone cut off. You get 15 minutes, you know, it cuts off. So, I hung up the phone and I went in my cell. You know, I got down on my knees and I begged God not to kill me in prison. So give me one more chance, you know, to be a father.
Let's just pause on Randy's story for a moment because I want to tell you another true story. I want to introduce you to another friend of mine, Dave Thomas. Dave was raised in a two-parent home. He was taught morals and values. He had good grades in school until he became a teenager and his best friend introduced him to drugs, to alcohol, and to gang violence.
Well, growing up, I grew up in a two-parent household. My dad did construction work, and so kind of like the boys, which was three of us, he taught us that trade with him, going out and work hard for your money, make a decent wage, you know, and do what's right. I believe I was turning 15, and then we moved into the projects. And so once we moved into the projects, that's when my whole life started going in a whole totally different direction. Peer pressure began to really play a major part, and then it pressured me as I hanged around him. He was my peer, and then the pressure, I began to get involved, and I started selling drugs, and I started having the idea and the perception of a lot of the African and black people who was around me, my peers, of that white people are the devil. You know, and you got, you know, this white and blue-eyed devil. So that was kind of like a saying that people will always say, you know, and especially if it was something that was racially motivated, that was taking place in the media or something, or if it was something where somebody felt like they was held back concerning with not getting a job opportunity, or something just deal with the government, or anything that it felt like it was something that the opposite race was doing towards them or whatever. And so they would express that, and they'd be like, you know, it's because of the white man, and the white man is the devil, and the blue-eyed white devil, and stuff like that. And so that started getting entwined in my belief, you know. And so I would start to, you know, express to some white people, not all, but whenever there was an encounter, or if I feel like if I was being, it was something that was unjust, or something that I feel like that it should have went my way, or it should have happened in a different way, and if it was something where specifically concerning with me and a white person per se, or if the white person got promoted and I didn't, you know, or the white person got the job and I didn't. So that's what would come out in my belief.
Dave dropped out of school in the 10th grade. For him, school could hardly compete with the drama and the cash from selling cocaine. By that point in his life, he was making more money on the streets than he could imagine making anywhere else. And it led him to being in and out of jail, and eventually it landed him at Green River Correctional Complex, where he learned about a white supremacist gang that he'd been warned to keep his distance from.
Once that happened in me, in the process of me still going to court and back and forth to court, I just said, God, whatever it is that they end up giving me with this time, or whatever it takes, or whatever take place, it's all in your hands. I'm gonna give it to you. And so I ended up getting 15 years out of that charge. When I went to prison, I would just think, okay, Lord, basically the stuff that I didn't get caught for, you know, I can just imagine if I got caught for this or I got caught for that, then it would have been way much more time. So I said, God, during this time, I'm just gonna dedicate my whole life to you, and get in your word, and let your word get in me and transform my life. And then I was moved into another dorm to go into a program called the Sap Program. So it was a substance abuse program. So that's where me and Randy met. It was more so of what I found out from other people that who Randy was and what he used to be involved with and what he did. So I was more of like, well, he may still be doing that. He may still be involved with that way of living and lifestyle. So
Dave watched Southeast worship services on television in prison, and once he was released, he came to Southeast. He signed up for a Bible study, a small group, and a weekend group. He began ministry in homeless shelters and with youth. And Dave was ordained by Southeast and sent out to help serve a church in West Louisville with Pastor Darrell Wilson at Greater New Beginnings Christian Church. And so now every day, Dave talks with people from all walks of life. People who are homeless, incarcerated, people who are doubting, people who are lost. One night in 2018 at a fundraiser for Prodigal Ministries, Randy told his story. He shared his testimony, and Dave Thomas was in the crowd.
I was very surprised. I didn't ever think I was gonna see Randy again, really. You know, it was actually a testimony to God's grace and His mercy, and you know, because you know when you're incarcerated and guys say that you know their life has been changed and transformed by the power of God. Normally, at times you say, okay. We'll see, right? You know, so once I seen Randy out testifying to the goodness and mercy of God and sticking and staying in the race and letting God use him, it encouraged me a lot, more so than he probably even knew, to say, you know, it was real. It was real. Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, David came up to me. And I hadn't seen him since we were on the yard together in prison. And we talked a little bit that night and shared about, you know, how we got from where we were at to where we were standing now. And we exchanged numbers and, discussed maybe getting together in the future.
So when you called, do you remember what you said to him?
I think it was more of just, you know, let's get together, seriously, you know, and have lunch and talk about what's going on, you know, what we can do, how we can get involved together. And I think we even was like, well, maybe we can go downtown and talk, you know, together and affect somebody, you know, show them where we come from and where we are now.
So, Dave, let me start a sentence, and you start it with the same words and then finish it, okay? As it relates to all this. And you can think about it. Like, you don't have to just pop it right out. Only Jesus.
Only Jesus can bring forth racial harmony. When we get to talking about the division and separation between cultures, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Chinese, and what that looks like is a lot of people groups just doing what they do and how they do it, concerning with language, attitude, needs, and going in a direction in their life. But our God created all human beings, every tongue, every tribe, every nation, not to be divided, not to be separated, but to come into unity, to come into one mind and one accord. When I was lost and I was in darkness into the world, and was believing all the lies of the world, which was from the enemy, that white people are devils and white-eyed blue devil and all of that. But once my eyes was open to see and my ears to hear, now the Holy Spirit saying they just lost. They just lost, and it doesn't matter what culture they are, they just lost. And so just how I saved you, I want to save them and let them see how I see.
Yeah.
And then I'm letting you see the same way. And that's every tongue and every tribe and every nation. Right. And that's what Jesus does. He brings racial harmony when you surrender your life to him.
That's good.
Yeah, that's it. That's the answer you're looking for with the true total transformation of your mind, body, that's what takes it away. That's what'll take it away.
When you see like the newspaper and it says, you know, describes the two of you as brothers, is that how you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't ask for a better brother. Yeah, for sure.
Is that how you feel, Dave?
Yes, for sure. We're definitely brothers in Christ, and skin complexion has nothing to do with that. It's all about the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.